All right, the fight we're both really excited about happening in the first quarter of next year is the officially announced fight between David Benavidez and David Morrell. These were two guys that were top contenders at 168 pounds. Benavidez, a two-time world champion at 168. Morrell, a interim champion at 168. They both have one fight at 175. Morrell beat Hot Rod. Going to butcher his last name, so not going to try on the August 3rd card. David Benavidez, he beat Alexander Vostok, a former champion, on a card earlier in the year. They're now going to meet, I think it's going to be in Las Vegas, 175 pounds. Two interim titles going to be on the line for that fight, which really doesn't matter all that much. This is really about two top-tier guys at 175 meeting in the ring. I'm assuming you're a big fan of this fight.
Who isn't, man? I think anyone with any kind of boxing brain is just salivating at this matchup. That's a perfect matchup. You can't ask for anything more. I mean, that's a perfect matchup between two big super middleweight, light heavyweights that are evenly matched. They were both the same height. And here's the thing, man, when you look into the numbers, because I remember the numbers of Morrell studying his last fight against Hot Rod, he has a 78-inch reach. I mean, Benavidez has a long reach, almost 75 inches. This guy has 78. That's like heavyweight type long reach. Add the power that Morrell has and Benavidez has. They're the same height. They're both pretty equal when it comes to speed as well. They're so evenly matched that I'm surprised that they took this fight. I'm really surprised. Benavidez chasing the Canelo payday is risking that against a guy with only 11 fights.
I mean, the Canelo payday is never coming for Benavidez.
Don't say never, man.
It's never coming for Benavidez.
All right, well, maybe another payday, but not against Morrell.
Well, the payday is the Beterbiev-Bivol winner. But
there you go.
You know, in this fight, it's a calculated risk. I'll give you that. Morrell's a good fighter. But if Benavidez, or Morrell for that matter, can win that fight, they are the natural, obvious contender to fight the winner of Beterbiev-Bivol.
That's a painful way to make yourself a mandatory, man. Now, mind you, I'm talking as a fan now, a boxing fan. Yes, I'm glad they agreed to fight, and credit to both of them. It takes a lot of balls to agree to fight each other because neither of them are champions. They're not champions, and they're fighting just for pride. They're fighting for their zero. They're fighting because they know it's a big fight. It's not a championship level, mega money, mainstream popular fight. It's two bad motherfuckers in their prime fighting each other saying, hey, I can beat you. Well, shit, I can beat you. Well, let's find out. Man, it doesn't get better than that. And I think all boxing should applaud these two for stepping in the ring and deciding to fight each other at this point of their career where they're at their absolute prime. Both of them are at their absolute peak. And they're fighting in a new weight division that's going to favor both of them, not having to sacrifice to make 168. Man, just everybody in boxing, stay tuned, applaud them, and watch what it is when the best fight the best at the best time. It's fucking magic.
I just don't know where either one of them had to go if they didn't go in this direction. I mean, we saw Morrell fighting deep on an undercard on the Riyadh season show in August. David Benavidez, good event. I think it was in June. Beat Vostok, good win for him. But what else is out there? Like, do you really need to see Benavidez against a Lyndon Arthur?
No.
Or do you need to see David Morrell take on whatever other faded former 175-pounder that PBC could come up with? This was really the only real fight.
For Morrell, you didn't let me answer. I would say yes, because with only less than a dozen fights, you're still making your name.
Yeah, but they're the same age, and it's not about the name.
People don't know who David Morrell is,
but,
really.
How many fights? How is he going to get that name? How does he do that?
By continuing to climb the ladder, becoming a champion in another weight division.
This is what you do.
He has 11 fights, man.
You just want to delay. Who cares? He has 11 fights, but he is did you say the same thing about like Lomachenko? Like these guys that were decorated amateurs that are on a fast track, they take on big fights before other fighters would be ready.
And I don't mind that because they have the privilege to do that because they have that amateur pedigree. Yes, I agree. Fast track them. But at 11 fights, yes, Loma's just fucking special. MJ Akhmadaliev was fucking special.
Yeah, but what about his stablemate, Andy Cruz? Someone that's trying to get on that fast track as well. Like these guys are fighting 10, 12-round fights already. Once you're on that track, this is a natural fight. Look, they're both the same age. They're both former elite 168 pounders. This is an obvious fight. Now, I don't really know who wins. Neither one of them looked all that good at 175. Both went the distance. They were both knockout artists at 168. Both went the distance at 175.
And the reason is because they didn't have that size advantage at light heavyweight. At 168, there were monsters fighting, big natural 168 pounders that were 5'10", 5'11". These guys are 6'2" with 75+ inch reach, and they hydrate. They both have the power, the speed. They're the perfect specimen of a super middleweight fighter. Now at light heavyweight, they're average now. They don't have that size advantage. So that's the reason they both didn't look like monsters at light heavyweight at 175, because the 7 pounds is a major difference, and they're not fighting smaller fighters that are rehydrated to 168. But when they face each other and they're equally matched so evenly, I mean, it's going to be bombs away. And the fact that one of them has to lose, and is probably going to be by knockout, that guy's going to take 2 or 3 steps back by trying to do something great. And this is where I have a problem as a fighter, not as a fan, not as a pundit, as a fighter. Having the balls to face that challenge and then coming up short and losing, no shame there. But having to take those 2-3 steps back when you're already the unknown. Say Benavidez-Morrell loses that fight, right? He was already unknown as a champion. He was already an unknown as a B-side to Benavidez. Now he loses to say he does lose to Benavidez. He takes 3 steps back. That's how you become lost in the wilderness of boxing, and it's hard to come back to the big money fight, to the big purses. It's hard for champions to look your way and say, "No, man, you lost on the big stage. Now let someone else deal with you. Let someone else deal with you. You're too much of a headache." He was a 6'3" hard punching southpaw with a Cuban background. No, thank you, man. No, thank you. It's the way it is, man. Sorry to tell you.
It's okay. If you lose a fight, yes, you take a step back. It's not 3 steps back. It's probably a half a step back. If this fight is as entertaining and competitive as we both seem to think it will be, the loser of this fight is not going to go very far. It's almost like saying
let me stop you there.
Hold on, I'm not done. I'm not done. It's my turn. Dmitry Bivol lose to Artur Beterbiev. Did Dmitry Bivol take a step back? He's not exactly the most marketable guy in the world. Did he take a step back losing that fight to Beterbiev?
We don't know yet. Who's he fighting next?
Probably Beterbiev in a rematch.
All I heard was probably. I'll give you a better example. Your number one favorite. Whatever happened to Demetrius Andrade losing to the guy we're talking about in Benavidez? This is a guy who was a southpaw, 6'1", 6'2", has all the skills that Morrell has, but lacks the power. 1 fucking loss. Where is he now? Where's your boo-boo Andrade? Where's your number one guy that you used to put on a pedestal and say this guy belongs on the elite? 1 loss. We haven't heard from Boo-boo again.
We're going to talk about Boo-boo a little bit later in the show.
No, answer my question.
We're going to talk, but we got a mailbag question on that. We're going to talk about that a little bit later in the show. Last point on Benavidez against Morrell.
Yeah, nothing to
you
say.
seem to think, I do have something to say on that. You seem to think that, do you think Benavidez is the favorite?
Yes.
You think he beats him?
Yes.
I kind of think so too. I think his volume.
And then 3 steps goes.
It's
David
not 3
Morrell.
steps backwards. When you lose a competitive fight, this is my biggest problem with your analysis, is that you are perfectly happy with a long run of absolutely dog shit fights from guys to protect their perfect record. That is what is causing this sport to slip from what was once in the mainstream to now among the fringes. You need to have guys in big fights and not worried about losses. Sergio, the fighters you grew up watching all have many, 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 many losses. The greatest fighter of all time, arguably Sugar Ray Robinson, 19 losses. Muhammad Ali, the GOAT, 5 losses. You go Sugar Ray Leonard, Roberto Duran, Marvin Hagler. These guys had losses on their record. What does it matter if you lose a couple of fights as long as you continue to get into the big ones?
I didn't say nothing about losing. When you're losing against the best,
you just said
fine.
If he loses, this fight takes 3 steps backwards.
It's David Morrell losing. That's the whole point. It's the fact that this unknown Cuban that has everything that you
going to
don't
become a
want
lot more known fighting David Benavidez than he would fighting in the Armory in Minnesota.
For David Morrell, it's a bad way.
Oh,
now if
crazy.
it's like, look, David, it's going to go exactly like Andrade losing to Benavidez. You're not going to hear of him
Andrade
again.
is 30-something. Andrade's mid-30s. David Morrell is 26.
It's not Caleb Plant losing to Benavidez. Plant is back because
Actually, I think it's exactly that. I think you just made the greatest point of all. Caleb Plant, who only had that loss, his biggest fight was Canelo. He got beat.
Caleb Plant is not a tricky southpaw that boxes on the back foot. And no, Caleb Plant has balls. And he's exciting to watch, and he always faces the best, and he goes after the knockout. Now, Caleb Plant's a different story. When you're dealing with Boo Boo Andrade and Morrell goes for the knockout, but if he comes up short, he depends how he loses. I think he'll change his style around. That's what I think.
Why would he change? The reason I don't want to go too far.
If he gets knocked out brutally, he'll have to start boxing.
Okay, maybe, but I don't think he gets knocked out brutally because Benavidez doesn't really knock guys brutally out. Like he wears you down. Like he's a volume puncher, a volume power puncher with a great chin.
He puts.
Morrell is the one that has the one punch knockout power. At least he did at 168. Look, I think this is brilliant for Morrell. I think if he loses a competitive fight, he barely takes a step back. He gets back in the ring in 3 or 4 months.
I agree with all that. I agree with that. Now let's talk about if he loses a bad knockout, then what?
If he loses by first round knockout, yes, that's a big
say
problem.
He loses by a beating in a 6-round fight.
I mean, Caleb Plant went the distance with Benavidez, but he took a beating.
Answer my question. What happens then to David Morrell?
I don't know. I think he has to recover. He has to bounce back the way all fighters do.
How many fights for him to bounce back?
2 or 3.
2 or 3 against people that
soft
nobody
competition.
Knows. Yeah, man.
Either way, he was going to fight soft competition regardless.
And now
do you want to see him in against Hot Rod in a rematch?
No.
Exactly. This is what we're talking about.
I just whenever you get to a point where you're making championship money, you have that undefeated record, you escaped Cuba and did all the great things as an amateur, and you want to cash in on all that pedigree.
That's what he's doing.
It's like an education, Mannix. You went to Boston College, right? What would your father think if you did all that studying just to be a fucking mailman or something like that? He would get pissed off, right?
This is the worst analogy I've ever heard.
All right, well, maybe not a mailman, but to work.
You're talking about apples and goats. So you're not even talking about things in the same category.
Oh, man. Look, David Morrell did all the great things as an amateur, winning these world championships. He won a world title. He's undefeated. He did it in less than a dozen fights. He's not known. He's not a commodity. People don't know who he is.
You know how you become one? You beat David Benavidez.
But he's not.
You roll the dice.
But he's not.
You take a chance.
He's rolling the dice, but you and me agree that he's an underdog, and I think he'll be the underdog.
Not a huge underdog.
And I think
he's not Edgar Berlanga against Canelo, I'll tell you that much.
I think it's a type of fight where both of them get hurt in a firefight. But
he's not Vostok against Benavidez. Benavidez has faced some lot bigger underdogs.
Mark my words, man. He's going to go in the same way of Demetrius Andrade. And if we ever do see Andrade come back, he's probably going to be fighting Morrell.
Andrade is, I believe, 34. Morrell is 26. That is a big difference in age. All right. So we joke, Sergio, about your career a lot, but I will acknowledge you were an excellent boxer. You won the Contender. You're from a world champion. Nobody could ever take that away from you. What you are also, though, is one of the worst businessmen as boxers that I have ever seen. One of the most famous stories that I like to tell is how you turned down a chance to fight against Jermaine Taylor for the undisputed middleweight championship. I think because there was a difference in like per diem, with you two.
We were $150,000 away from making that fight happen. And it did not happen. But I'll tell you one thing. I do regret it, not because of the money. I regret it because of the legacy. I mean, I had a chance to fight for undisputed in the 4-belt era against a troubled champion in Jermaine Taylor in a fight I could have won.
Yes.
But, hindsight's 20/20, whatever.
It is. So that was one of a string of bad business decisions you made in your professional career. So I want to introduce a new segment here on the show, which is the Sergio Mora Mount Rushmore of bad business decisions, which is effectively going to be.
But I made more than 4 bad business decisions.
No,
There's only 4 faces up there.
This is guys that have made terrible business decisions that are happening in real time. And the first face I want to put on that Mount Rushmore is the face of Amantas Stanionis, who we found out this week is going to defend his welterweight title against Shakram Giasov, who is the #1 challenger for Stanionis' WBA belt. The reason this is a bad business decision is because Stanionis, just a couple of months ago, turned down significantly more money to get into the ring for a title unification fight against Jaron Boots Ennis. So instead of fighting Boots in a big event for multiple titles, he is stuck fighting the unknown Shakram Giasov in a world title defense for what is effectively pennies or nickels or quarters, whatever it is, on the dollar. So welcome, Amata Stanionis, to the Sergio Mora bad business decision Mount Rushmore.
Was that a question?
Do you agree?
I agree. Yeah, of course I have to agree. And by the way, there's a lot of great men that have made bad business managers, all right? Mark Twain was a terrible
Why does Mark
terrible
Twain
business
always the go-to for you?
because he's a Sagittarius like me, and I'm a big Mark Twain fan. But anyway, he lost everything and had to recoup it in his 60s because of bad business decisions.
But
anyway,
how
to answer your
crazy?
question,
Is it not crazy?
yes, it's crazy.
That
Yes, it's crazy.
Stanionis turns down
It's crazy.
7 figures
No, it's crazy.
to fight Boots, and instead will fight Shakram Giasov in a fight that he could lose. Like Shakram
yeah.
Giasov is a
Oh,
decent
yeah.
fighter. He could lose that fight for significantly less.
Look, I can go good and bad. I can go sunny side up. I can say that I can give you an example of my glass half full. What do you want? Glass half full, glass half empty?
Either.
Okay, glass half full. You got to give it to these Eastern European, Central Asian fighters. They don't give a fuck. They're willing to face anyone, anytime, and that's what you want out of boxers. Now, these guys aren't young boxers; they're in their 30s or early 30s, whatever it is. So they need to make business sense, but they still don't care. They're willing to fight anyone, anytime. I just want to fight the best. That's what's something the Western fighters and a lot of American fighters can learn from. These guys are willing to face anyone, anytime. So credit to that. That's the half glass full analogy. Half glass empty. You just said it, man. It is stupid. Wait to cash out. Wait to cash out against a Boots, a Ennis, a Crawford. Look at what Madrimov did. Madrimov is like a Giasov. They're from the same Uzbek school of boxing. He just cashed out on the biggest possible stage against Boots Ennis. All eyes are on him in a fight that he was competitive in. He got a boatload of money. He lost to the absolute best fighter, pound for pound on the planet. No shame losing there. That's what you do. So look, half glass, half full. I don't know what to tell you. You got to give credit to these guys for doing it. But as a boxer and as a manager, you got to say like, man, just wait and cash out on your undefeated record. I don't get it.
Crazy. If he winds up losing to Giasov, he will have fumbled the bag.
Stop saying fumble the bag.
In a big,
I told you not to say that
big
again.
way. I'm sorry, but that's what it is. There was
Just say something
seven-figure
else.
offer on the table to fight Boots Ennis in a title unification fight. Now you're fighting Shakram Giasov on a PBC show. Maybe it winds up as the co-main of Benavidez against Morrell. Maybe it winds up on the Tank Davis card. I don't know, but either way, it's not the financial reward that he would get to fight Boots, and it's not as high profile either.
He mishandled the monetary compensation. Don't say drop the bag again, please.
I'm not saying that either.